You want graduated warmth, okay? And I knew somebody that bought a thought, and it was really kind of ingenious, except it just didn't work well. They got a heating pad for a waterbed, and they thought, well, if I put that heating pad in the floor and then put shavings and stuff on top of it, that'll be just great. And the problem was they set it, they cranked it up there, and it was like 95 degrees, and the baby chicks couldn't get anywhere to avoid that heat. And so he called me and said, man, they're so active and they're chirping all the time. Well, the problem was he said, they're panting. They have their little beaks open. And I said, well, raise your heat lamp up. And he goes, oh, I don't have a heat lamp. And he described what he had. You want graduated warmth. You want that area in your brooder to have a warmer end and a cooler end. So that they can kind of, if they get a little chilled, they'll move under the heat. Once they get warmed up, they'll go back down and they'll eat and drink and be happy that way. Okay? You want to keep the environment dry. We use pine shavings. It's real important that you use pine, not cedar. Poultry are allergic to cedar, okay? And they lose all of their feathers, and they look really strange, okay? It probably won't kill them, but they will look really weird with no feathers walking around in the brooding environment. Feathers are also the highest protein requirement for a bird. Feathers are about 70% protein. So all that expensive chick starter that you're feeding those babies that has a real high protein content, all of that protein is going toward making feathers when they're developing. If they lose all their feathers while they're baby chicks, and then they get to the mature stage, they're not going to lay eggs until they produce all their feathers back. Okay, so you want to make sure you use pine shavings. And people say, well, how often should I change them? When the pine shavings begin to mat or begin to get compressed, or if they ever get wet, you need to change them out. Okay, you just dump out the old and put in fresh. Okay, so that they have a nice dry environment. Baby chicks don't like to be wet. Okay, adult hens do not like to be wet. Okay, you want to keep it clean. If you have any smells of ammonia, it's probably time to change the litter out. Okay, and you want to make sure that it's safe and secure. Okay, so that the pet dog, the pet cat, or the 2-year-old who really wants to pick the baby chick up and hold it, you want to make sure that they have access when you're there, and it's safe for them to have access. And we always recommend don't start with one. Okay, don't start with one. Poultry are social, and they need a sense of flock in order to be stress-free. We have on occasion, people will say, well, I've already got a few birds, and I can only have 5 in my neighborhood, and we've got 3, I'd like to buy 2. 2 is the bare minimum. If you buy 1, it's not going to do very well. If it survives, it will be very, very stressed, and it will change the way it grows and develops. We always recommend starting with at least 3 baby chicks. Okay, that way if something happens to one, the other one still has a companion. Okay, but they are very social creatures, and it will really reduce the stress tremendously on them if they've got somebody else in the coop with them or in the pen with them. And you want to limit handling as much as possible, especially for the first 2 weeks. After that, you can handle them more, but their little immune systems are just getting started. And so we recommend folks use hand sanitizer before you handle them to keep the chicks safe. Use hand sanitizer after you handle them to keep you safe. That way you're not transferring bacteria back and forth between you and the birds. Okay? You're going to need a heat lamp, a feeder, a waterer, and shavings. That's all you need to brood. And the nice thing is, if you're going to be doing this over a long period of time, you can use the same feeder next year to raise your baby chicks next year that you did this year. Okay, so it's a one-time investment in terms of the equipment for you to be able to use. Okay? All right, any questions about brooding chicks before I go into the next section? Okay, yes ma'am.